Good morning. Happy Sunday morning. I know you guys are up and probably preparing for service either in person or online. But before you go any further, I want you to think about something. I want you to think about who you're holding on to. Mhm. Who have you not forgiven? What offense have you not gotten over? Who do you need to release? Because what I need you to understand is God can't bless or he can't move and do what he wants and desires to do. Not that he can't, he won't. He won't move and bless and do what he desires to do where there is unforgiveness. Why is that? Because the one thing that God died for is forgiveness. And if we are not willing to extend the one thing that he gave his life for, how then do we expect for him to move on our behalf, to bless and prosper us when we're not willing to extend the one thing that he gave his life for? Forgiveness. Whoever that is, they're not worth your access to the presence of God. You can't go into God's presence any kind of way. You can't go with a lot of baggage and a lot of stuff and a lot of unforgiveness. You have to be willing to release, let go, and lay down all of those things that keeps you out of God's presence. Peter asked Jesus in Matthew chapter 18, I believe. He asked Jesus, how many times shall I forgive my brother who sins against me? How many times shall I let it go? Peter comes back and answers his own question. He says, 7 times. Jesus says, no, Peter, 70 times 7. Like Jesus was telling Peter, your mind is so small. But let's put it like this. However many amount of times you expect for God to extend forgiveness to you is the same amount of time that you need to be willing to extend forgiveness to others. So if you don't want your forgiveness to run out, if you don't want however many times, you don't want God to say, okay, once you get to 250 times, I'm done. If you don't want God to say that to you, then don't put a number of forgiveness on anybody else. Pastor Charlie Date says it like this: if you have been forgiven, then forgiveness is your responsibility. And whatever your responsibility is, that means you have to do it if you want to or not. So we have been forgiven. Christ died so that we could be forgiven. Sins past, present, and future. So since we've been forgiven, forgiveness is our responsibility. Let them go. Let it go. Release them. You think that you're holding them hostage because you won't forgive? Mm-mm. They've gone on with their lives, enjoying their life. And you think about them when you wake up, when you sit down for lunch, when you go to bed at night. So who's being held hostage? You are, because you won't forgive. So I'm praying for you on this morning, all of us. And forgiveness is not easy. You can't pick and choose who you want to forgive. No, Jesus says forgive if you want to be forgiven. So you don't get to choose who you extend forgiveness to. You don't get to choose how many times. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation, but it does mean that I release you from the penalty or the punishment that I feel you deserve. I can love you. I can be cordial. I can forgive you. So before you go to church on this morning and shout and praise God, and you should, I just want to make sure that you don't have any unforgiveness in your heart. Because if you don't forgive, you won't be forgiven. And if you have been forgiven, Forgiveness is your portion. Let them go. Release them. No one is worth your access to the presence of God. Nobody. Nobody is worth me being able to go into the presence of God. And if I have you in my heart and I can't let you go and I refuse to forgive you, I can't go with clean hands and a pure heart into the presence of God. And you are not worth my access to the presence of God. So I choose to forgive. So I want to say to you on this morning, choose to forgive. Not because you want to, but because it's your responsibility, because you've been forgiven. I love you. Have an amazing day. Forgive and be blessed.